The creative aging program here at the Wallis has really taken off. We started with 2 classes back in 2019, and this August we have 15 classes starting in August. I know, isn't that great? And so we have everything from our sort of the flagship creative writing program, which is stage stories, monologues. We're starting an acting class in the fall. We had a creative journaling class last week. We have Afro-Cuban dance. We have ballet starting in the fall. So there's something for everyone. So please, probably the first or second week of July, our registration's going to be open for the fall. So please keep a lookout on your email. And if you want to be on the sort of get to know before the public knows list, my email is on the program. Send me an email and I'll make sure you find out before anyone else does, before it goes out to the public list at the Wallis, because our classes fill up really fast. So I hope you guys have an incredible time tonight. There will be one 15-minute intermission, and we'll start the show right now. And I'd like to introduce our first writer this evening, Elaine.
Thank you, Deborah. My name is Elaine, and the story that I'm going to read to you is called Audience, Please. There it was, hanging in my mom's closet. You know, the one with the party clothes. I found her for a stole. The one that has those little mink heads where the mouths open and close. Well, I wrapped it around me, and I marched in front of the mirror when I was 7 years old. I proceeded to give my Academy Award speech, crying and thanking my parents and the agents. And then when I was 9 years old, I found out that Judy Garland was coming to the Hollywood Bowl. I wrote a personal letter. Dear Judy, I love you. I want to be a singer. Can you tell me what to do? I addressed the envelope to Ms. Judy Garland, Hollywood Bowl. I guess she never got it. I mean, I'm sure she would have answered if she did. Well, you know what? That didn't discourage me. I soon picked up the skill of lip syncing, because I could not carry a voice. My first audience was for friends and family in our living room. And then I built it out. I'm gonna wash that man right out of my hair. You know, the one from South Pacific. Well, I went from the living room to the famous Ciro's nightclub at 8433 Sunset Boulevard with the lip sync rendition of Louis Prima's That Old Black Magic. It was thrilling. But the highlight of my auditions was for Danny Kaye. His daughter Dina was a good friend of mine in the 7th grade. She invited me to go to Palm Springs with her, and then she casually said, oh, and my dad's gonna drive us down there. Oh my goodness. That was all I needed to hear. I spent the next few days rehearsing every joke I ever knew. Dina and I sat in the back seat of his car. I saw him smiling in the rearview mirror. I was going to be in his next big movie. About 10 minutes into my routine, Dina smiled and whispered in my ear, Elaine, he thinks you're funny, but that's enough. And then I did a showcase at the Zephyr Theater. When you coming home, Red Ryder, Red Ryder? But there was only one problem. There were only 3 people in the audience. But I was tingling all over. That's when I realized that having an audience, no matter how small or large, made me feel alive. Well, Richard Dreyfuss, cute, freckle-faced, chubby little guy, and I were acting partners and friends in high school. Who knew that 10 years later he was going to make it and I wasn't? Well, he was shooting Jaws in Martha's Vineyard, and I knew a friend who was going to be there at the same time. So I sent him one of my famous personal notes. Dear Ricky, it's me, your funny acting partner from high school. When you get back to LA, it would be so great if I could audition for you. I spent the next 3 days rehearsing what I was going to put on my answer machine. Remember those answer machines that took up the entire space in your house? I waited for a year, wondering if Ricky ever got my note. I must admit, though, I still find myself occasionally practicing my Academy Award speech in front of the bathroom mirror. Thank you. And now I would like to introduce Cynthia, our next reader.
Hi, I'm Cynthia, and this is my piece, The Grandmother Sweater. I found the grandmother sweater on the sale rack, 30% off, in a department store in West Covina. It was a pale cream button-down cardigan with flowers made of stitching. The thin piping swirled around the front of the sweater to form a bouquet of daisies, cream on cream. I called it my grandmother sweater, since it looked like something a grandmother might wear, a kind of cozy acrylic knit to throw on a cool spring morning before the California fog had burned off. It was the 90s, and people wore such things then. But there was something slightly geriatric about the sweater that spoke to me. I was 31, married and wanting a child, and my husband's cold feet had begun to warm, but not enough. My biological clock was ticking, and a friend suggested that I trick my husband. But my heart told me otherwise. We both had to be ready, even if it hurt to wait. Putting on the sweater felt like a reprieve, a deep breath after being unaware you were holding it, the comfort of a grandmother's embrace, even though my grandmother Olive died the day before my 7th birthday, and my Grammy Amelia was 3,000 miles away in Maine. I wore my grandmother sweater over sundresses and camisoles, jeans and t-shirts. It even went over the lacy blouses I wore to teach. My attachment to it was strange, since it looked like something out of the 50s that a contented housewife would wear. But I was learning how to be a professor, a wife, and a writer as I longed for motherhood. On my mornings off, I would work on screenplays, terrible screenplays, that are fortunately lost to the wind, typing in my home office on an ancient Macintosh computer, writing dialogue full of subtext that made no sense to anyone but me. I wrote 3 screenplays in 2 years in that room that I thought someday would be the nursery. I wore my grandmother's sweater as I typed and I dreamed. A year later, I had the first miscarriage. Then the next year, my daughter Emily died from a birth defect 3 days after she was born. There are no words for that pain. No sweater that could make it better. There were days I felt so numb, I felt like I was living in a fog. I put away the small cap the nurses had knit for her, the plush dinosaur I had bought as her first toy. I went to the mortuary and picked up her ashes. But all summer I let her spirit guide me, and I felt her presence around me. For her, I lit candles in Italian churches, watched fireworks in St. Mark's Square in Venice, and wrote my first short story in a hotel room in Lake Como. I felt peace when I thought of her, like the warm hug of a grandmother, the soft wool of a sweater, and she was with me then, even though she wasn't. And now I'd like to introduce Anne.
Thank you. Great. Thank you. Hello, I'm Anne Goldman, and I'm reading I'm From. I am from a wise and modern mom who practiced transcendental meditation and eating healthfully, and a father of deep integrity who went to war, came home, and never spoke of it, only survivor of his company. I am from their generation, a daughter of silent men and smart women, Gregory Peck and Katharine Hepburn, and journalists like Edward R. Murrow, the greatest generation. Indeed. I am from Saturday mornings with Roy Rogers, Sky King, Rocky and Bullwinkle, and Circus Boy, and Sunday evenings with Snow White, Walt Disney, the Beatles, and Ed Sullivan. I am from longed-for poodle skirts and Elvis Presley movies my cousin took me to see. King Creole was lost on me, but I felt very grown up going with Bonnie. I am from all the books I've ever read. Beautiful Black Horses, Secret Gardens, Holden Caulfield, Martha Quest, and all the literary rebels, outsiders, searching for self, learning how to be. I am from the 50s, into the 60s, through the 60s, and past the 60s. Archetype in an era, les années 60. I am from women who don't pierce their ears or wear bras and want to get through this life naturally. I am from tomboy slow down as I raced past, wanting to see the world. And I am ever so glad to be born a woman, moving through the world on my own, if such a thing is possible. I am from the belief that if we work hard enough, the dream can be achieved, and I worked hard enough. Had a brilliant launch, and then a not-so-rapid, unscheduled disassembly. And yet, I am from that time when being honest, nice, and true to your word was a matter of character. And I still travel with those friends as I lose and find my way again. Now I'd like to introduce our next writer, MJ.
Hi, I'm MJ Miller. I'm still MJ Miller. Oh, it's that documentary about Hugh Hefner and Playboy. I think I told you about it. Yeah, I'm doing archival research and editorial support. Well, and by archival, I mean the entire library of Playboy films. Well, we can use them for free for B-roll and stuff. So say the editor needs a sunrise or a girl walking through a door. I just scan through footage and see if I can find something they can use. Well, yes, I am watching soft porn and fast forward all day. But hey, what's the big deal? It's 1992. I can handle it. But the men? Sometimes I hear shuffling behind me and I'll turn around and it's the guys from down the hall watching over my shoulder. It's hilarious. They never grow up. Oh, yes, I've been to the mansion. It's pretty fabulous. It's kind of trapped in the 70s, though. You will never again see that much avocado green and harvest gold shag carpeting in your life. Great chocolate chip cookies, though, warm, right out of the oven. Oh, yeah, I've been to the pool. I've been in the grotto. I've also been in the room where the floor is a mattress. Oh, it's a regular room. It has furniture and everything. But the floor is like this thick tumbling mat. Yeah, it's a mattress. Ew. Oh, no, there's not been any parties yet, but we are filming the Midsummer Night's Dream party next month. Well, not we exactly. I'm not going. It turns out Hef literally casts the women who go to his signature event parties. I'm 34 years old. I'm a good 10 years past this man's sell-by date. No, I'm not kidding. I'm not kidding. Greg called to see if his wife could come, and, just to watch, stand in the back. They asked him to submit a headshot. Hef is obsessed with the Playboy image and that all the women in his world are perfect. Oh, no, it doesn't bother me. The man's bananas. Well, it does bug me a little that I can't go even as part of the crew. The pudgy little assistant editor is going to do the paperwork in my place because, he has a penis. I keep wondering. I keep saying, when is all this bullshit gonna end? I mean, I've paid my dues. I'm the co-producer, for God's sake. Oh, no, I'm not gonna say anything. What are they gonna do? What's he gonna, oh, if MJ can't come, we aren't coming. Yeah, no, it's fine. Well, yeah, I wish Greg could push back just a little, but he doesn't see it as that big a deal. It's just one filming day, MJ. Whatever. You're right, you're right. Maybe I will say something. I'll think about it. I promise I'll talk to him. Maybe. And now please welcome the next writer, the lovely Connie.
Here you come. My name is Connie Woodson, and I'm here to tell you a story about long ago in Little Rock, Arkansas. I love to play in the dirt. My spoon and my little girl fingers make a winding trench that becomes a roaring river when I fill it with water from the side yard hose. I'm building a horse ranch along the river. I have all my small horses scattered by the river's edge. Sleek black, brown, pinto colors, and a white one with the prettiest mane and soft pink nose. A few stacked rocks make a house for a tiny person to live in. The trees are sticks, shaped like a Y, with leaves stuck on the ends, like real trees. My mother calls me in for lunch. I don't want to leave my horse ranch. The river is evaporating and becoming a slippery, muddy snake. It's kind of a gloppy mess. But I can fix that when I come back later. We live in a duplex at 410.5 Izzard Street. What a funny name. Izzard.
Is that a mistake? Was it supposed to be lizard? Or wizard? Or gizzard? My twin aunts, Ruth and Ruby, live downstairs. Part of their front door has the most beautiful, oval-shaped, slanty-edged, frosty glass window. The doorbell is a brass key centered below the shimmering glass. When you quickly turn it, the merriest sound happens. Bring, bring, bring. I want to keep turning it forever. I wish I lived behind this beautiful door. Oh, Mother's calling me again. I forgot about lunch. I run upstairs, leaving muddy shoe tracks in the living room. My little sister pointed at them. Shh, I said. It's Saturday and Daddy's home. He'll play poker tonight with his friends at the same kitchen table. Until then, we're having tasty pimento cheese sandwiches on white bread, cold sliced cucumbers, and sweet lemonade. A perfect summer's day on Izzard Street. My grandma Mamie lives just down the block. She runs a boarding house. I love being there. She has a long front porch with a swing where you sit and watch the fireflies at night. There's an upright piano in the front entryway. It has a music roller, and when it plays, the piano keys move by themselves. I put my fingers on the keys and pretend that I'm playing. Do 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 do. Do 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 do. Upstairs, there's a long hallway with rooms for the lodgers at one end, and in the middle is the dining room. Near the big dinner table is a swinging door leading into the kitchen. Oh, the food smells so good. There's a sleeping porch where Grandma Mamie sleeps and has her sewing machine. Outside the kitchen is the washing machine with a round tub and big rollers that wring the water out of the wet clothes. Be very careful not to get your fingers caught in between those big rollers. It would really hurt. Irene lives at Grandma's house. She sits with me under the giant, shady, and beautiful fig trees in the backyard. Irene is teaching me how to make long-stem, red creped paper roses. I'm happiest at Grandma's house. We laugh, we hold hands, we dance, we sing. And Grandma gives me her big spoon so I can dig some more dirt and build my dreams. I'd like for you to welcome Karen.
Hi, I'm Karen, and the name of my piece is That Door. At 13, I was unwillingly transplanted from New Jersey to Los Angeles. By the time I was in college, I was sure everything was better in California. And that's when my parents announced they were moving back to New Jersey. My father went there ahead of my mother to purchase a house for just the two of them. Much to my mother's dismay, he purchased a too-big house on a too-big lot. When I visited, my mother gave me the tour as we commiserated over her frustrations. But really, I was viewing the house through the lens of how it would have been to grow up there. Big yard to play with the dogs? Yep. Great rec room for teenage parties. Oh, no, reminder to self, I wasn't allowed to have teenage parties. Next, there was a main level with all the essential stuff. Kitchen, family room, bedrooms, living room, yep. And an upper level with more furnished but totally unnecessary bedrooms. The tour concluded by going into the upstairs bedroom at the end of the hall. My mother stood back to watch while I explored this room. On the far side of the room was another door, a regular door, no different than any other door. I assumed this was an extra closet, but it wasn't. Opening that door, I was shocked to discover another room about half the size of the bedroom. And that room could only be accessed through this bedroom. If I were still a child, I would have claimed that bedroom with that secret room all to myself. I instantly imagined myself in that secret room as a little girl twirling in my tutu, or as a teenager worshiping pop stars and whispering secrets in the dark. But I lived in California, and in a few days, I would be heading back. So that enchanted space would remain silent and empty. Now I'd like to introduce our next writer, Linda.
Hi, I'm Linda Singer, and I'm going to read a piece called When Love Hurts. I remember back in the day, back in the 50s and the 60s, you know, for the Me Too movement, back about the time that Betty Friedan and Gloria Steinem appeared on the scene. I remember how women didn't talk about, didn't tell about abuse. Back then, the question women asked themselves was, what did I do to deserve it? Women took responsibility back then for what happened to them. They knew that it was somehow their fault. Back in 1964, in my family, we had fried bologna sandwiches for supper once a week. My brother Tommy played football for the Wildcats. My brother Stephen was class president. And my little sister Janie walked 3 blocks to McRae Elementary. I was a junior in high school, 16, and I wore Danny's senior ring around my neck. We loved each other. When Danny said he loved me, I thought he meant a tender touch, a sweet kiss, a lingering hug. But that was the year that I discovered that sometimes love hurts. In June of that year, Danny and I drove to Hot Springs, Arkansas. Hot Springs was a resort for big-time gangsters back in those days, and they had 11 recreational lakes. We were typical tourists, and we bought matching T-shirts, and we had a nice meal in one of those hamburger stand dives, you know, with the call boxes. I had my purse open, and I was putting on makeup. Danny noticed a note, a folded note in my purse, and he reached in, took it out, and read it. It wasn't a love note, or even a semblance of one. It was a simple note from someone in my art class talking about the class and my work in it. But Danny took it as a flirtation and rumpled it into a ball with his fist. He fumed as I started to stutter. It wasn't a love note. And that's when he hit me with his fist several times. I doubled over and he continued to hit me on my back. Finally, he stopped and he held his fist in his lap with his other hand. I waited. I sat up, wondering, was this how lovers behaved? I didn't know. I'd never had a boyfriend before. I was silent. He was silent. We drove home in silence. We dated a little while longer, and one night I came home with a busted lip. My mother asked, "Did he hit you?" When I said, yes, she put an end to my seeing any more of Danny. You know, the funny thing is, we never talked about it. Nobody. We never talked about it. It was just one of those things, just one of those things that happened back then. Thank you. Thank you. And the next writer is Ellen. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. I'm Ellen. And my piece is called Damn It. Damn it. The more things change, the more they remain the same. I thought about these words while watching the 1953 movie Lily. I was a preteen when I saw it, and I loved it. I twirled around the house singing, "The song of love is a sad song, high lily, high low." But I never asked why love was sad. Watching the movie again, I learned. In the first few minutes, Lily, an orphan 16-year-old, meets 3 men, a rapist, a misogynist, and a brooding ex-soldier. Putting aside my disillusionment, I watched to see what happened. Helen Deutsch, the screenwriter, failed on every level. If the slap by Will Smith was seen around the world, Lily's slap was so loud and abrupt that I cried out in pain. I hadn't expected it. I didn't remember it. What had everyone loved about the movie Lily? The answer should be nothing. Lily's youth and abuse were never dealt with. And just when we think she's fleeing to save herself, she runs back to her violent and emotionally aloof anti-hero. As he swoops her into his arms and feverishly kisses her, he holds her like a dangling rag doll. This ending left me with even more questions. What messages had I been fed as a child? What had I learned about being a woman? What had I learned to expect from men and romance? What other beloved films and Broadway shows programmed my thinking? The list is long. Calamity Jane, 7 Brides for 7 Brothers, Kiss Me Kate, and John Wayne in The Quiet Man, who proves his virility and love by dragging Maureen O'Hara across the Irish countryside until she acquiesces. Movies and Broadway defined love between a man and a woman for me. Howard Keel in Seven Brides for Seven Brothers stood proud and powerful over petite Jane Powell. Gordon McCrae in Oklahoma stood proud and powerful over petite Shirley Jones. Alfred Drake in Kiss Me Kate stood proud and powerful over Patricia Morrison. And music underscored the visuals. Barbra Streisand in Funny Girl singing My Man, "Oh, my life is just despair, but I don't care, I am his forever." Or Ava Gardner in Showboat singing, "Tell me he's lazy, tell me he's slow, tell me I'm crazy, can't help loving that man of mine." Powerless, obsequious, desperate. As a lonely, insecure teen, I absorbed these lessons and more at home, school, temple, and the nightly news. No one taught me differently. Bella tried, Gloria tried, but the indoctrination was complete by the time they attempted to raise my awareness. I had been ingrained to value men's power, intelligence, and opinions over my own. Still, today, newspapers, magazines, social media are rife with smart, accomplished women who defer, capitulate, accept the unacceptable behavior from the men in their lives. Some stay out of fear, some finally move on. Occasionally, there's a winning lawsuit, but then it's followed by a CNN rally and a cheering crowd. The more things change, the more they remain the same. Damn it, it should be different by now. I'd like to introduce our next writer, Gail.
Hi, I'm Gail Gordon, and I am reading The Origin of the Scar. 7:30 p.m., and I am pacing back and forth. What if they're late? I am still pacing, and it's 7:40 p.m. They're coming so far, and she's always running on Jamaican time. What if they're not coming? The crowds are jostling around me, energy abuzz, heightening my anxiety. 7:50 p.m. I'm pacing and so stressed. 7:55 p.m. and I can barely stand it. Anticipating major disappointment, it hangs like a shroud. And suddenly, there they are, their car pulling up. As they jump out, I grab their hands and we run inside. Phew, I can finally breathe. Tonight is so important to me, sharing this experience with Shaka and Jaja. In 2000, after seeing the Lion King musical when it opened in LA, I knew I had to take them to see it too. June promised to bring them from Ventura, where they moved a few years back. I still visited, but not every day like before, when I would stop by their house most afternoons on my way home from work. They were such an important piece of my life. Seeing this Broadway show, so overwhelming in its creative genius, so stunning, I could not wait to see it again with them. They had never been to a theatrical production like this before, but I knew they loved the movie, and this would be a spectacular first experience. Breathless, we ran into the theater, racing to our close-up aisle seats just as the lights were dimming. And then, as the curtain rose, with the soaring Circle of Life opening number, the sun rising on the stage, a drummer with a djembe on each side of the stage in the upper wings, the incredible Julie Taymor, large-sized animal puppets rhythmically moved down the aisles. The audience gasped in unison, in wonder and awe, and I shed a few tears embracing this magical experience with these beloved boys. After, as we drove back to my house for a sleepover, so excited to see performers that looked like them on stage, we sang the songs and talked about the story and characters, Simba, Musafa, Scar. The three of us had scars that brought us together, and on this day we're being healed yet again, one adventure at a time. And now I would like to introduce our next writer, Cynthia.
Hi, I'm Cynthia Dodona, and my story is My Lunches with Jonathan Winters. Oh, tech angels. Should I do it again? Okay. Hi, I'm Cynthia Dodona, and my story is My Lunches with Jonathan Winters, a comedy legend and a gracious man. I recall with delight when I first met the legendary comedian Jonathan Winters while working on a photo shoot at his California home. As a freelance interviewer and performer, I asked Jonathan, "Can I interview you sometimes?" He says, "Ask my son." Jay says, "Sure, as long as you feed him." Jonathan adds, "I love hot meals, so please, no more fruit baskets." Months later, I interviewed Jonathan for a radio show I'm hosting over a wonderful Italian lunch at Via Vai restaurant, where laughter, conversation, and pasta prevail. 2 years later, we lunch again. With my Italian-Greek DNA that loves feeding people and my food advocacy soul, how could I not offer another hot meal to another fellow comedian? This lunch is arranged by my writing teacher, Ian Bernard, a multi-talented friend of Jonathan's and former Laugh-In musical director. I'm writing a memoir book with humor, and I hope that Jonathan might give me a quote from my book. Prior to this, Jonathan visits Ian's class at the Santa Barbara Writers Conference, where he encourages us to use word pictures to conjure up images. Our lunch is filled with humor and laughter. Ian vouches for my comedy talents, and then he has me prove it. At the table, I'm honored to read and perform my spiritual humor. I begin with, "I've read so many self-help books that I am exhausted from helping myself." But I did learn how to love myself more. How? I took myself out on a date. First I sent myself flowers, and then I acted surprised when they arrived. For me, you shouldn't have. Okay, I'm worth it. Jonathan laughed and laughed. Ugh, what a feeling. Then I bravely asked him if he will give me a quote from my book. He agrees and begins his trademark improvisations. "Cynthia is a very funny lady. She got me in touch with my inner goddess, who turned out to be Maud Frickert. I'm so taken by Cynthia's enlightenment, I leave the lights on 24 hours a day. I suggest you buy truckloads of her books." More laughter as we choose the quotes, and Jonathan approves by signing a testimonial form. It felt like blessings pouring down from the heavens. After lunch, Jonathan treats us to ice cream nearby. We take photos and we laugh more. Jonathan passed in 2013 at age 87, joining his beloved Eileen of 60 years. Born in 1925, he survived early hardships and mental illness. He once said, "I'm grateful I've been able to keep the child alive in me and to inspire others to do the same." His example of overcoming adversity inspires me. In 2011, when my husband goes through a health challenge, we choose health and food over rental housing costs in California, and for 2 years, we sleep in a van in a church lot. Between daily prayers, I think of Jonathan's courage and the many others who have overcome life challenges and gone on to make a difference. Eventually, our prayers are answered. Yes. With my husband on the mend, we move into an affordable, cozy cottage for 2 of our own. Jonathan's daughter, Lucinda, credits him for teaching her to fearlessly express herself. I feel he did the same for me as I choose to inspire by courageously sharing my stories. Thank you and bless you, Jonathan. Thank you. Now I'd like to introduce our next writer, Lucy.
Good evening. My name is Lucy Papia, and the piece I'm reading tonight is called The Edge at the Top of a Steep Place. I don't want to be honest with you because I don't want to be hospitalized. I read that today. It was supposed to be funny, but it's not. It's sad. I'm sad. I mean, I don't feel sad. I'm just a sad character of sorts. I don't know why I'm here. Oh, I'm supposed to talk about me, but I don't know me. I know the outer me, the wife, the mother, the daughter, but the me inside, oh crap, I don't know what happened. She was buried a long time ago. She buried herself a long time ago. You know my story. So I'm asking you, I've been a good mother, haven't I? A good wife, a good daughter? Oh, that's very important to me, you know. I thought I was a good person, but I'm just a person. What a strange thought, just a person. How would it be all right to go through your whole life without being good? That's what my mother told me. Be a good girl, Lucy, and remember to cross your legs when you're wearing a dress. Oh, God. I'm not sure how my nails got this way. I wanted them to be perfect tonight. They were perfect just yesterday. But now, today, I could just rip them all off. Are you laughing at me? That's okay. But just to let you know, I'll probably go home tonight and cry about that. Just kidding. I've been having deep, bizarre, crazy dreams. A few days ago, I woke up yelling for everyone in the house to help me find my little white dog. I don't have a white dog. Each day, I wake up with this hideous headache across my forehead. Some things I cannot bring myself to talk about, even to myself. I woke up this morning in complete distress. My head, all this twirling and swirling inside is making me crazy, but I'm not crazy though, just a little confused. If I have too much silence, then oddball memories pop up in my mind from nowhere, you know? Like I thought of spinning and spinning on the roundabout as a kid. I couldn't get off. Charlie, where are you? Charlie? Oh. I try and lift my head enough to catch a glimpse of Charlie. There he is, waiting to shove the death-defying roundabout that I'm so desperately trying to cling on to. It's a contest of wills, it is. Charlie is vying for that one strongman shove that will fling me off into outer space, or at least drag me round and round till my knees are bloodied, or I let go. Mine is simply the will to hang on until Charlie is too exhausted and gives up. No one wins here. I end up throwing up, and Charlie is hit in the face with my vomit. I would have laughed if I hadn't been so sick. You see, it's like this. My mind drags me off in so many different directions, I can't focus on any one thing for too long. Inside me exists a singer, an actor, a painter, a writer, a storyteller, and one who absolutely wants to learn to speak French and live in Paris. Does that make me crazy? Have you ever wanted to be somebody, but knew you might never be? Thank you. And I'd like to introduce our next writer, Phyllis.
Hi, I'm Phyllis. Stuff. New York City, 1982. I carried a tan leather shoulder bag which had pockets for juicy fruit gum, an apple, some hand lotion, a diaphragm, a wallet with a few dollars in it, a Kotex pad wrapped in a paper towel, an Almond Joy candy bar, a bottle of red nail polish, a small comb, and a half-eaten bagel with cream cheese on it, just in case I got stuck on the subway. In the 70s, I lived in Paris. I always had a chestnut in my pocket that I picked up from the boulevard. After a while, it became shiny and very smooth to the touch. It was my good luck charm. Unfortunately, I had a hole in my pants pocket, and one day I discovered the chestnut was gone, but I found another one on the street, and even bigger and better with much more luck. What a great invention this thing called a pocket is. You put your hand in, put stuff in, and then take stuff out. You can hide a tiny nail clipper in your back pocket in case you have a date or a job interview and your nails are funky. If you find little balls of gray dust in the pocket of, say, your coat or a pair of pants, that means they haven't been worn in a long time, and perhaps you should donate them to charity. I especially like very big raincoat pockets because when it stops raining and you have one of those small fold-up umbrellas, you have a place for it, but you should put the little thing, skinny cover on it, otherwise you'll be in big trouble. In Los Angeles, you don't really need so many pockets, you just dump all that stuff I just talked about in the car somewhere, who cares? But when was this thing called a pocket invented? Google knows. 500 years ago, pockets appeared on waistcoats and trousers. But what about buttons? And let's not forget the zipper or the hoodie. Velcro, that's a whole other story. And now for a poem. A poem. A pocket, a rocket, a locket, a socket. The end. And now I'd like to introduce our next writer, Anthony.
Hi, I'm Anthony Barry Smith, The Moon and I, and the amazing tech. Perhaps the wine swayed a walk beneath the moonlit sky. I didn't swoon or sing a tune. I thrust my bottle high. You fool me not, this moonlight thing and all that it surrounds, of romance, love, and happiness that other souls have found. For I can see the gruesome truth beneath the reverie of something cold and dim and dead the others cannot see. O voyeur moon with awkward smile, who watched my people drown on ships of old that once had gold where humans now abound. You control the earthly seas, you have that power true. Reverse the waves, turn back the ships. Did that occur to you? Instead, you watched them stolen, cold, lost for centuries. You saw them dive into the deep and drown beneath the seas. You have no warmth. You just reflect the shine of something greater. Cold, lonely, lifeless, more grotesque with every crater. Then the moon said, yes, I reflect the sun at night for those that choose to see. That's not the reflection that you fear. You see yourself in me. Lonely, cold, you barely move to face the earth each day. No air to shield you from the rocks that jettison your way. No one left to help you heal or take the scars away. The sun will implode and vanquish the earth. Nothing is forever. Don't squander time cursing the heavens. It's all just life. Spin, breathe, pull people close, heal yourself and others. Let go of the anger and live. Just live.
My name is Cindy Rucker Trost, and my piece is called Life and Death, Poetic and Bittersweet. My mother lies on a recliner while a harpist sits on a stool in the back of a room. She's playing a tune I do not know but find appropriately soothing for the audience. A room filled with cancer patients on recliners, some sitting, some supine, all receiving their hopefully life-saving chemotherapy infusions. With some luck and God willing, this will be my mom's last chemo cocktail. My phone rings loudly, very loudly, and I dig around in the bottomless pit of my oversized, overstuffed handbag and retrieve my phone. Usually I turn the ringer off out of respect for the staff's attempt to create a tranquil space where death lurks and plays eeny, meeny, miny, mo, to choose whose treatment is a waste of their time. But I'm expecting a call from Tony, my half-sister. On the family tree, she's my father's daughter from his third marriage. She is in a Myrtle Beach hospital, 1,300 miles from where I am. Her phone in one hand, the other holding our father's hand. He is dying. It's close, her voice says, sad and soft. She sniffles and tells me that she's putting the phone next to his ear so that I can say goodbye. A rattling sound emanates from his throat. It's not a snore. It's what breathing sounds like when the only living tissue in your lungs is cancer. And as it grows, it simultaneously fills the pleural space between the lungs and the chest wall with malignant fluid, while inside the lungs fill with tumors and sticky mucus. Soon there will be no room for air. And he will take one last inhale and exhale, and the rattling will stop. I love you, Daddy. The words barely make it over the lump in my throat before my sobs catch the attention of the staff. A nurse wheels over a partition, and she creates a private space around my mother's recliner. I'm right here with you, Daddy, and Mom, too. My mother reaches up and pinches the bridge of her nose, as if that can hold back her tears. She and my father were teenagers when they ran away and got married and had me. The rattling sound on the other end of the phone stops. It's silent. Tony comes back on the line and says, he's gone. I offer her some words of comfort and thank her for calling me so that I could be with our dad too in his final moments. The call ends, and I lay my head in my mother's lap and cry. Sometimes it feels surreal and at the same time poetic and bittersweet, that moment on May 7th in 2009 when I simultaneously held my mother's hand at the final chemotherapy treatment that made her a breast cancer survivor, and listened to my father take his last breath. And now I'd like to introduce to you our next writer, Harriet.
Is this going in? Yeah. Thank you. Hello, I'm Harriet Lipson, and I'm reading Long Ago, Far Away. I come from long ago, far away. I come from a gem of a city, Montreal, Mount Royal's namesake, rising up from bustling downtown streets of a uniquely bicultural Canadian metropolis, a distinct remnant of a volcano once active 125 million years ago, now dotted elegantly with silent cemeteries and granite gravestones, marking the final resting places of once spirited souls. I come from indelible memories of my youth in that city, of lying restless in my crib, ear pressed against the wall shared with the family bathroom, naively jealous of Mom's soft voice, trying to soothe the little boy standing patiently on the toilet seat, his eczema-riddled body painted with salve and wrapped in strips of old sheets to ease the unrelenting itching. Anguished parents waiting for sulfa drugs to be developed, perhaps someday soon. I come from the scent of lilies of the valley, wafting across the walkway, where 5-year-old me waits on the stoop for my sister Joni to walk me to school. Down streets lined with lilac trees, whose blooms are shyly left on a favorite teacher's desk. Past lawns blanketed with mounds of snow for months on end, exposing a lost red mitten when the spring finally arrives. Across the once unremarkable boulevard, where Joni's now eternally young friend Mia lay motionless in a tangled heap as the hit-and-run driver vanished, leaving scattered school books in his wake and a pair of small, rimless glasses, which made their way to a drawer in the antique desk in the corner of our living room, never finding their way home to the child's grief-stricken parents. I come from a land of compassion, diversity, universal health care, unlimited opportunities, and abundant natural resources. I come from a province that turned its back on me and my first-generation ancestors. I come from 1976, the infamous year when a social democratic political party advocating for Quebec to become a sovereign state came to power, relegating Anglophones like me to second-class citizen status. I come from xenophobic guidelines, replacing public signage and corporate advertising with French-only substitutes in precise sizes and specific fonts. I come from citizens, friends, families, strangers, leaving a once vibrant city reduced to a skeleton. I come from a new order of draconian laws in which residents and visitors alike struggle to comprehend once familiar street signs and menus, translated to French almost overnight. I come from a province of unparalleled potential, where small businesses face bankruptcy, unable to afford the outlandishly arbitrary language policies. I come from doting parents, helplessly standing by as my brother and I leave our birthplace, mirroring the exodus made by their parents, escaping Russian pogroms at the turn of the century and arriving in Quebec, once a province of refuge and promise. I come from the echoes of President Charles de Gaulle's incendiary words that flew in the face of diplomacy when delivered during a visit to Montreal. Vive le Québec libre. Long live a free Quebec. Followed by loud applause from the largely francophone audience and de Gaulle's conspicuously cut short visit. Earlier this month, 47 years later, 5 Quebecers, an entrepreneur, a retiree, a teacher, the mother of an autistic boy, and a woman with a chronic disease, took on the language law with a crowd-funded lawsuit aiming at Bill 96's devastating impact on human rights. The beat goes on and on and on. It's now my pleasure to introduce my fellow writer, Mary Jo.
Hi, I'm Mary Jo. We'll wait for this guy. And I'd like to have you join me in hearing my story about the magical quest for a bologna sandwich. It was a hot summer night in 1972. We took the pill, my brother and I, sunshine acid. The promised trip was about to begin. Good, bad, or whatever, it is now in the hands of the unknown. As we sat anticipating the psychedelic journey that was about to start, I suddenly sensed my body growing fur. I wasn't panicky, I just accepted that I might be a woodland creature and my odyssey was about to begin. As I sat washing my fur, all my senses became excited. The curtains started to flow back and forth, as if a breeze were in the room. Suddenly, I became aware of a desperate need for a bologna sandwich. Yes, bologna on Wonder Bread. I know that this is the only thing that will save me. I am becoming obsessed with the need for a bologna sandwich. Tom, my brother, and I decided to get into the car, as if driving while on a sunship trip was a normal thing to do. Well, after all, somewhere out there, we would find bologna wrapped in Wonder Bread and smeared with mustard. Since I was not driving, I would not question my brother's state of mind while I was jonesing for the bologna sandwich. We pulled into a tavern parking lot in search of the bologna sandwich. The parking lot was full of motorcycles. We assumed it might be a biker hangout, but not to be deterred, the long-haired hippie, high on acid, got out of the car on the quest for my bologna sandwich. As I sat in the VW van, well, would you have expected it to be a BMW? An aura of psychedelic colors bathed me in enchantment. I half expected the hippie to come flying out of the bar, Wild West style. But it was a saunter, or was it a stagger, to inform me there were no bologna sandwiches to be had in there. We continued this fascinating journey through the enchanted forest of the Gatineau Hills in Quebec. My mind continued observing the cornucopia of colors and movements, the beautiful surroundings of the trees swaying, their roots dancing up out of the earth. This otherworldliness has possessed me. Am I in a dream? Is this an alternate universe that the LSD has taken me on? I could never have dreamt of such enchantment. The woods were alive with dancing and mayhem and transcendental creations. Eventually, we headed home. The hallucinatory, mind-expanding acid trip continued for 8 hours in this magical, mystical, spiritual world. Tom and I are back home, but the kaleidoscope world of sunshine is not ready to let me go. No, I'm back where I started, washing my fur and wondering, whatever happened to that bologna sandwich? Thank you. And now I would like to introduce you to our next writer, Betsy.
Hi, my name is Betsy, and the story I will be reading is titled The Empty Days of a Late November. I don't remember my early childhood with any great clarity. I remember the day my grandmother died, but I don't really remember how old I was. I spent my early childhood years growing up in nearly total isolation on the New Jersey shore. I was raised by my grandparents, who I called Ma and Zeta, and we lived in a small oceanside village that was mainly populated by summer people. 3/4 of the year, we lived among abandoned summer rentals with only the majestic ocean as our companion. It was a wonderful place. From the middle of June every year until the day before Labor Day, the place was packed with families that came from places like Trenton and New York City and Philadelphia. And they brought children and pets and noise and laughter to our otherwise very quiet little haven. And then, as Labor Day approached, the summer people packed up their children and their pets and their noise and their laughter, and they went back to wherever it was they came from, and they left us to the raging ocean and the innocent quiet of a town forgotten for the winter. That's how I remember those early years. An idyllic life. Noisy, exciting, wonderful summers, and quiet, lonely, but lovely winters. One morning, in the empty days of a late November, I woke for breakfast but found the usually warm, bustling kitchen eerily empty. No coffee brewing, no scent of baking, no Ma at the stove, no Zeta at the kitchen table reading the paper. And then I heard my Ma's voice in a kind of quiet whisper. Isaac, I don't feel so good. Isaac, I don't feel so good. And then I heard a crash. I ran toward the sound, but Zeta was already there, screaming at me to get on the telephone and call someone, anyone, to bring help. But it was too late. And just like that, the noisy summers, the quiet winters, the peace of an idyllic life, the bliss of childhood was over. As I said, I don't really remember, but I think I might have been 6. And now I would like to introduce our next writer, the lovely Lyra.
Hello, my name is Lyra, and I will be reading The Epiphany of Mama Till. I am standing in the mirror, gazing at the woman I have become, standing tall, my hair in a neat bun, long black dress, 2-inch heels for the evening. And as I stand here, I can hear Mama Till's voice with her heavy Jamaican accent in my head saying, "Girl, what are you wearing?" That statement would plague me throughout my life. In Mama Till's eyes, I was a follower, I had no style, and no matter how hard I tried, and I tried, there would be no pleasing her. I remember one birthday, I was so excited, for I had saved my allowance and gotten Mama Till her favorite perfume, Red Door. With pride in my heart, I wrapped her gift in her favorite colors of red and gold. And with anticipation and excitement, I presented Mama Till her gift, daydreaming about her kissing my forehead and saying, "Oh, baby girl, me love it." However, my reality was Mama Till taking my gift and with a small hint of sarcasm saying, "Me no longer like Red Door. Next time, ask me what I want." She sat the box down and walked away. I cried that day because yet again, there was no pleasing Mama Till. Over the years, Mama Till often critiqued my weight, my style or lack of style. My confidence at this time was non-existent. I now understand why I sought friendships that would validate my worth, or often fell in love with the wrong guy in hopes of belonging. I think over time I convinced myself that any attention I perceived of love was better than nothing. I often questioned why Mama Till never truly approved of me. I worked hard. I never got in trouble, well, at least not much trouble. I was respectful, doing my very best to ensure that my actions never disappointed her expectations of me. So why couldn't she just love me? As the years passed, my bitterness towards Mama Till set in. I tolerated her presence because she was my mother, after all. The day came when Mama Till became sick with dementia. Dementia, the thief of memories. I remember being outraged, the audacity. She now needed me. I remember screaming with tears staining my eyes, the nerve of you, needing me when you never even loved me. Mama Till stared with me with true hurt and said, me always loved you. Me just figured if I was hard like how my dad was on me, you could survive the hardships of this world. And at that moment, memories of my misstep, my disappointments, and broken promises that I was to overcome gave me the epiphany of Mama Till. For I realized Mama's voice was always in my subconscious, forcing me to strive for greatness no matter what the world threw at me. I would like to introduce our next reader, Frank.
Good evening. My name is Frank Papia, and the piece I'll be reading is The Double U. Way back in the wet wool blanket-scented corner of Wanda Wrangle's W Bar and Grill came a chorus of whoops and hollers from a group of arm-wrestling, whitewashed wise guys. To the winner of this wrist-wrecking contest went the spoils, the worm at the bottom of a bottle of mezcal, and a special kind of dance from Winnie, Wanda's wisp of a daughter. Woodrat, Willie B, to those who hadn't lived through the wet-your-whistle flood of '69, was struggling not to fall into the wall of wisteria Wanda had planted a couple of days after winter, cried Uncle to Spring. If Woodrat couldn't retain his balance, it was going to definitely be his own personal Waterloo. If Wanda's eyes washed over a mess of wilting wisteria and the woozy body of witless Woodrat, not even the smile from a teeny-weeny wallaby could be enough to prevent Wanda from wringing Woodrat's neck. Tommy Weisenheimer was back in town and took up residence on a rickety stool at the end of the bar. Tommy used to take up a whole booth with his palm and tarot card readings. It was a great gig for Tommy. That is, until the negative readings outnumbered the positive ones and the disappointed customers would inevitably run out of the double U with cries of, "No, no, it can't be true." These weeping wails of disbelief fell upon the ears of Mr. Wrangle, Wanda's wart-faced weasel of a husband. After a few choice words, Mr. Wrangle showed Tommy the door and tossed him out on his whoppingly warped cauliflower ear. There were rumors that Tommy had joined a band of wandering gypsies that were assassinated somewhere west of Wallflower, Washington. The rumors proved to be untrue. Tommy was back, hoping all was forgiven and that the negative palm and tarot card readings had wandered into the wasteland of memory. Wanda Wrangle never wavered in her desire for a tall, dark, and handsome. But fate had short, bald, and wasted in mind. A perfect description of her current abusive, weak, and mean husband. More often than not, Wanda could be seen wavering within the shadows of the W, sporting the results of a recent whack or wallop. A sort of black and blue poster that read, "Don't marry too young." Along with Winnie, Wanda had an overweight, mentally weakened son named Wally. Wally could be found most days sitting in his wobbly, worn-out wicker chair, watching Willy Wonka on the Westinghouse black and white that Wanda had bought at Walmart. It was a weirdly quiet Wednesday at the W. That is, except for the wheezing whoops of exuberance coming from the whitewashed, arm-wrestling wise guys in the back. Wanda took a woeful look around the mostly empty W and was left with no other choice. The dehydrated, lukewarm, wrinkled weenies that rotated on a circular wire rack above some thrift store sun lamps would have to be marked down and sold at half price. It was at this very moment that Wanda Wrangle let out a sigh and remembered some weathered graffiti she had seen written on a wall one white, wintry day in Wichita. Sometimes it's the brick upon brick of the everyday that has one contemplating murder. Thank you. I'd like to introduce our next writer, Leslie.
My name is Leslie Gaynor, and this is my story for tonight. Joni Mitchell sang from the cassette tape, serenading us for our first view of San Francisco. She sings, "Light up, light up, light up your lazy blue eyes. Moon's up, night's up, you're taking the town by surprise." Richard gazed into my sapphire blue eyes and said, "She's talking about you. One day you'll write about this. You'll be at the City Lights bookstore reading a poem about us, singing a song, doing a signing, sipping the best espresso from North Beach. It'll be your witty, pithy Dorothy Parker commentary of this entire trip." I smile. We're 17, the prying eyes of our high school, 400 miles in the rearview mirror. It's 1976, and the after-hours clubs we're heading to are legendary and epic. It's now 2 a.m. as we enter the Stud in the Castro district. We're seduced by the dance floor, by Donna Summer's orgasmic, pulsating singing, bodies undulating, sheens of sexy sweat. We add ours to the hundreds of lips mouthing, "Ooh, love to love you, baby. Ooh, love to love you, baby." All of the guys are looking for Mr. Right, or Mr. Right now. Richard's vacillating between the two while cruising on his favorite Quaalude and amyl nitrate metronome. He's determined to shed the shackles of his internment as an altar boy at St. Monica's. Richard walked into the Stud disco party like he was walking onto a yacht. Then how exactly did Richard end up on life support at the age of 28. His Catholic parents would utter their shame, oozing, "You died of that gay disease." I was disinvited from his funeral because the last words his parents heard him say before the respirator mask silenced him were, "I'll always be grateful to Leslie for giving me the courage to come out." I was told by our friends that his parents' bitterness, burning in collaboration with the overwhelming incense in the church, formed an impenetrable cloud over his funeral mass. I couldn't have stood still to fucking witness that. 2 weeks later, I'm flying to Los Angeles to covertly visit Richard's grave. I turn to the stewardess and tell her, as Joni would say, "There are clouds in my coffee." Rain clouds of tears are pouring, punctuating memories of our past. But this is not a eulogy, Richard. This is the soundtrack of your life, which I was forbidden to sing as you were laid to rest. Richard, Santa Monica High School, class of 1976. Rest in peace, Richard. And now I'd like to introduce our next talented writer, Andrea.
My name is Andrea, and my piece is called "A Letter to My Beloved Hometown." Dear Burbank, fuck you. Warm regards, Andrea. There's an unabridged version. Dear Burbank, you took a 10-year-old girl from the warm embrace of liberal, creative, welcoming Hollywood, a girl with self-confidence and popularity. You threw her into a foreign land, Burbank, California, 1953. No Latinos, no Asians, no African Americans. Just a few scattered families of Jews. When you came into my life, I didn't even know that being Jewish mattered. I entered Ozzie and Harriet world with no preparation. My immigrant parents wanted to own a home, $7,000, Burbank. Kids born of GIs who, when returning home, were suspicious of foreigners. A town filled with WASPs and devout, church-going Republicans. 6th grade, once a week, buses came to take my classmates to church. We 8 kids were sent to a designated classroom. Christmas and Easter were celebrated by the others in the auditorium. We were sent to that same segregated room. We were singled out as the ones who killed Christ, loudly acclaimed during lunch while any table we sat at was pulled away, so it didn't touch their table. Brave girls came up behind me and felt my head for horns. Pennies were pitched at the stairways for me to pick up. I learned an entire new vocabulary and who I was, as names I had never heard before were bandied about by kids who only repeated what they had heard from their parents. 6th grade finally over, junior high was laden with a new crop of kids and a few more of us. The overt harassment diminished somewhat, yet even my parents were publicly disrespected by those same kids. When my mother drove some of my classmates to a conference, they would mimic and laugh at her accent. My parents obviously had thicker skins. They had survived World War II in Europe. When a Nazi flag was displayed in my journalism classroom, and I was Heil saluted by our resident albino sports editor as I entered the room, there was just some chuckling over the humor of it all. The teacher requested that the flag be removed. His only admonishment to the situation. I survived, and yes, there was an upside. Through high school, I lived to prove I was as good as, if not better than, my classmates. My revenge was to overachieve in every way possible. Best grade in every class, editor of the school paper and yearbook, multiple scholarships. Award after award, but no prom date. Unless I imported a boy from another community, like LA High, Beverly Hills High, Uni High. Burbank, I will never forget you. Fuck you. Warm regards, Andrea. Please welcome our next storyteller, Ellen.
Hello, I'm Ellen, and I'm a word junkie. I'm hooked on the capacity of words, both spoken and written, to enhance my life with images and emotions. While my seasons have changed from spring to summer, fall, and now winter, the power of words continues to sustain me. How lost I would be if I were to develop aphasia and become unable to comprehend and formulate language. My earliest memory is of my mother's words, soothing, loving, impatient, frightened, and my father's words, gentle, kind, humorous, playful. I recall the magical words of my picture books and feelings of delight, wonder, and desire for repetition, which motivated me to learn how to read them on my own, except for the Babar series, printed in cursive. Phooey! My addiction extends to nursery rhymes, lyrics, crossword puzzles, Scrabble and Wordle, newspapers, chapter books, magazines, novels, nonfiction, poetry, personal letters, emails, texts, and foreign language words. Imagine my excitement at receiving my first diary, which enabled me to express my very own thoughts and feelings on the written page. I remember transitioning from journal entries to short stories, novellas, screenplays, and mysteries. What a thrill to find my name in print for the first time and receive an actual check in the mail for my words. Still, I prefer the process to the product. That is, observing people, eavesdropping on conversations, getting under their skins and fabricating a story like a dress. I never know what stone, leaf, or door will lead to a new idea. Sometimes people don't get my inability to be present in the moment. I try to explain, but it's hard for them to understand my drug of choice. And now it's my pleasure to introduce a fellow writer, Sidel.
Hello, I'm Sidel, and my piece is called The Scar. You can't reach my age without having scars. Suffering is part of the human condition, and a familiar companion I've learned to accept. It was June of 1980, and I was 7 months pregnant. As I dropped my son off at daycare, a teacher pulled me aside. "I think you have blood on the back of your pants," she whispered. I ran to the bathroom, called my doctor, and went straight to the hospital. After being poked and prodded, the doctor finally appeared. "It looks like the placenta is covering part of your cervix," he said. "If the baby delivers naturally, you could both bleed to death." I looked at him in disbelief, tears glassing over my eyes. "Don't worry," he said, trying to reassure me. "You'll probably be fine. The worst that'll happen is you'll lose the baby." I opened my mouth, but he continued. "The closer it gets to term, the better your chances." When my husband arrived, the nurse gave us instructions. "Complete bed rest to avoid further bleeding," she said. "But if it starts again, come straight to the hospital and we'll do a C-section." I caught my breath and we made our way home. We hired a nanny to help us out, and I followed doctor's orders. My due date was still 8 weeks away, so I stayed in bed. And I made it for almost 2 weeks when I started to hemorrhage. We took my son to a neighbor's and drove to the hospital. As soon as I got in the car, I started shivering. It felt like I was lost in a snowstorm and would never be safe again. I was still shaking when we got to the hospital, but they were expecting me. So I was whisked away to the operating room and immediately prepped for surgery. I was given a local anesthetic, and my body went numb. But I felt a smooth blade move slowly across my abdomen, and I heard soft voices all around me. And I saw a doctor hand a tiny purple baby to the pediatrician, and the room went still. After a long silence, I started to panic. "What's the matter with my baby?" But nobody answered. The seconds were ticking away, and then, in the corner of the room, I heard it. A faint cry that gradually gathered steam. The nurse grabbed my hand. "See, your baby's gonna be fine," she said. "Oh, and it's a girl." We named her Emily. She was 5 pounds, 6 ounces. And after a week in an incubator with tubes everywhere, I got to bring her home. And she thrived. I have a beautiful scar where my daughter was born. I wear it with pride because she's filled my life with love. What a joy it's been to watch her grow up and have children of her own. Suffering may be part of the human condition, but fortunately, so is joy. And that's what keeps us alive and coming back for more. And now, I'd like to introduce Jage.
Hello, my name is Jage, and the name of my story is The 4 M's. I was having dinner with my boyfriend John, and he suggested putting pinball machines in my store to make more money. I said, okay, but how do I get them? He said, I'll help you. In 2 weeks, I had 4 pinball machines, 2 automatic gun machines, a kill the cops machine, and a vending machine. The next day, I had a line of screaming kids around the block waiting for me to open up the store. I called John immediately and said, I want to open 2 arcades. He said, meet me for dinner and we'll discuss it. When I got to the restaurant, John was there with 2 other men. One was his father and the other was his uncle. They were dressed in shiny black suits. Small talk starts. John's father and uncle take over the conversation with hands flying and words I don't understand. Words like crony, put a stick in it, the family, burn it, and can't is never the answer. I'm thinking they really must have had a bad day. John breaks into the conversation. They all look at each other and say yes to the pinball machines, but I needed to sign a 3-year contract. I'm okay with this because John and I are in love and practically engaged. I signed the contract and now I have 2 arcades that are doing fantastic. I'm out with a friend one evening and I tell her the story and she says, what did you say his last name was? I said Bonanno. She said, who? Bonanno. Do you know who they are? I said, what are you talking about? You need to check them out. Oh my God, the Chicago Mafia, the mob. I am now part of the Mafia. What are my poor Jewish parents going to do? What have I done? On top of this mess, my divorce is being finalized, and I am desperately needing to get out of this contract, and I am terrified. My only hope is that John is still the kind, loving man when we were together. I finally got up the courage to call him and asked him to meet me. He, of course, chose an Italian restaurant. That night I was very nervous. John got there before me. The maitre d' brought me over to John's special table. Blood red leather seating, very dim lit, and in the back of the restaurant. I sat down and John put his arm around me to pull me closer. My armpits are soaking wet. I looked up at him and started to ask him about the contract. Then he pulled out a piece of paper out of his chest pocket and laid it very carefully in front of us on the table. The lighting is very dim, but it's the contract and my eyes are tearing up. John took his hand and put it under my chin. Our eyes are now locked. Then I hear paper tearing and my heart stops. So you might ask what the 4 M's are: men, money, mafia, and me. And now I'd like to introduce Randy.
Thank you, Jage. Thank you. Hi, my name is Randy, and I'm reading my piece, Valley Girl. I grew up in the San Fernando Valley, once full of citrus groves before the influx of tract homes in the early 1950s. We played outside, rode skateboards and bikes, walked to school unattended, and enjoyed the bright California sunshine. In summers, we swam, went to the beach, or perhaps to Pacific Ocean Park, an amusement park at the end of Pier Avenue in Santa Monica that was demolished in the late 1960s. I wandered Hollywood Boulevard by myself, reading the stars' names as my grandma got her weekly due at the beauty school. Green foliage, not walls, framed our freeways, and rush hour was literally an hour in the morning and an hour in the evening. In my early 20s, I migrated from Tarzana to Studio City. I loved traversing the windy canyons through wealthy neighborhoods, over the hill, or to the beach in my convertible. My walkable neighborhood includes an elementary school with an animal farm. There's the Getty Center, the Hollywood Bowl, the Rose Parade, Olvera Street, Grand Park, and Griffith Park, a known haunt for the Hillside Strangler during a summer of fear. Movie and TV studios, the Sunset Sunset Strip, Mulholland Drive, the 405, Beverly Hills, Rodeo Drive, and yes, some Real Housewives. I enjoy the serene Westwood Cemetery, where some of Hollywood's most illustrious lay, tucked behind skyscrapers on Wilshire Boulevard. The Hollywood Forever Cemetery abuts Paramount Studios in Hollywood. They project movies to crowds in the summer and grandly celebrate the Day of the Dead. The Museum of Death sits quietly on Hollywood Boulevard. I am a morbid tourist. Restaurants, art galleries, notable architecture, live music and theater venues large and small, year-round hiking, sandy beaches and mountains, all accessible. The warm weather and the chance to be rich or famous lures people to LA. In 1992, the Northridge earthquake spit some out. Troubles disrupt the idle. I was a fearful 6th grader, sitting in the back seat of the car en route to Baskin-Robbins one hot summer night, not understanding the proximity of the Watts riots to our home in Sherman Oaks. Bobby Kennedy, unceremoniously assassinated at the Ambassador Hotel in 1968. My friends and I slept during my 16th birthday slumber party as Charles Manson's minions inflicted helter-skelter, murder and mayhem on Cielo Drive, unsettling a town and altering the world. OJ got away with murder. The Menendez brothers didn't. Violent South Central and the legacy of Rodney King. Michael Jackson meets the LA coroner, needle and arm. Doctors Tyndall and Pulafito and the college admissions scandal disgrace USC. Corrupt sheriffs, questionable LAPD shootings, and the Los Angeles City Council. Homelessness, gunpoint robbery for a Rolex, a fancy car, or a few dollars. Earthquake, fire and flood risk, rising heat, persistent drought, and paralyzing traffic. Notorious, still glorious, LA is home. Thank you. And now I would like to introduce Marjorie.
Whoa. Good evening, everyone. Thank you. Good evening. My name is Marjorie. My story is called Molly. Susie was insistent on returning to Mommy's in the morning. "You don't need to come," she said. "No," I said, "I'll be there." Then I called Dory. "Okay, Susie and I are going to Mom's tomorrow. I know you're tired, so am I, but I'm going to be mad if you're not there. All you need to do is sit on the sofa." "I'll be there," said Dory. Monday morning, just days after her funeral, my sisters and I returned to Mom's small one-bedroom apartment. The scent of stale cigarette smoke permeating through the walls seemed as if she'd walk out of the bedroom at any moment. "Girls, anyone want an egg?" The ghost of her voice echoed. Stashed in the closet were musty cardboard boxes. Seemed like a good place to start. As the slow process of dismantling her life gained speed, it sparked a pocket full of memories in me and a view of the cloth I was cut from. One old box housed my grandparents' tax returns from 1958. I wondered how often she looked at them. Yellowed pages capturing a year of Etta and Hyman's life. There was no rhyme or reason for the next dusty box. Is this a time capsule? My adolescent handwriting on cards. Notes from her brothers Charlie and Harry. Old stock confirmations. a 1947 newspaper clipping and photo of the Earl Robinson Chorus, all 5'2" of her standing in the front row. She had a life before me and my sisters. East Coast, West Coast, socialist, Orthodox Jewish, a Catholic ex-boyfriend. Eventually, she met and married Joe, my dad. Mom was a 7-layer cake. Hanging in the closet was an old dress. I see her infectious smile looking stunning. Sleeveless linen, 3-inch wide shoulders, a fit and flare style that was deep magenta, burnt orange, and yellow in wide horizontal stripes. Wiping down the kitchen counter reminded me of Saturday cleaning day. Dusting, scrubbing the tub, vacuuming, you name it, we did it. Between chores, we'd all watch old movies together. Pocketful of Miracles on the old console TV. Susie, Dory, and I ended the day at Berrigan's for tacos and margaritas. For a moment, I forgot why we were there. As our glasses clinked to toast Mom, I thought I heard a fourth glass join in. I didn't say anything, but I could see a vision of her, Molly, and her larger-than-life smile, saying, "How sweet it is." Life is a little quieter now that Molly has moved on. Thank you. I'd like to introduce our next talented writer, Eileen.
Also the final writer. Just FYI, could I have that on that side, please? Thank you. Fantastic. Thank you. My name is Eileen, and this is a monologue that I wrote about my son. You know, people ask me if I have kids, and the answer is, it's complicated. I have a son who I didn't meet until he was 27 and I was 45. I fucked a drug dealer named Gimpy when I was 17 and had a baby when I was 18. There was no question that I was going to give him up for adoption. Middle-class white girls were not keeping their babies in 1969. I signed papers 3 days after he was born and gave him away, and never thought very much about it afterwards. One day, July 4th, 1996 to be precise, I got a call from a woman who said, and I can remember this verbatim, "My name is Julie Jones, and I'm a private search investigator from Seattle, Washington, and I've been asked to locate you." I swear to you, I had no idea why she was calling. And then she asked me my name and if the date March 28, 1969 meant anything to me. Of course, then I knew. And I started to cry. In case you haven't noticed, I am a little dramatic. And I said, "Is he in Seattle?" And she said, "Oh no, we do this all by computer. He lives in your area code." My son was living 1.5 miles away from me 27 years later. But the story gets stranger. When he was 16, he was friends with my good friend Jackie's daughter Mariah and that actress, Christina Applegate. They all hung out at Jackie's house in Laurel Canyon, but nobody knew he was my son. But the topper was that his job was working the door at Jumbo's Clown Room, the notorious strip bar in Hollywood, which is owned by the family of my niece's husband. So my son was working for my niece's mother-in-law, but no one knew he was my son. I met him 3 days after the call from the searcher, and except for the fact that he's 6'4", half Mexican and a guy, we look exactly alike. I never had any other kids, and I thought this was going to be my greatest joy, but it's turned out to be my biggest heartbreak. I don't know what I was expecting, but he's a drug addict. Not surprising considering the details of his conception. He was so gorgeous, like a movie star. So many ups and downs over the years. A grandson I see, a granddaughter I don't. And he's 54 now, and he was strung out on meth for the last 3 years or so. He's losing his looks and his teeth and his mind. I've lost count of the number of psycho wards he's been in. He says he's clean for 8 months now, and I'm hoping it will last, like all the other times I've hoped it would last. Oh, I forgot to tell you. He found his bio dad, Gimpy, the drug dealer, real name Alfred. He was still caught up in the drug life. AJ started going over there and shoving white powder up his nose. He would say, every time I go to Alfred's, I end up in the psycho ward, so I would say, don't go to Alfred's. The guy didn't know he had a kid. I never found him to tell him. Anyway, AJ called me one day and told me that Alfred died. I was glad. It meant AJ wouldn't be going over there anymore to get high. I know it's a horrible thing to say, but I don't care. So in answer to your question, I have one son, but I never know for how long. And now it's my honor to introduce or to invite all of our great writers out on the stage for one final bow, as well as the director of the Creative Aging Program, Deborah Pascaret.